Everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here in the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and we're live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith. We're streaming on 987radio.com. We're on your AM dial as well at 1420, and we're on social media at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers on Facebook, at Health from the Rock at YouTube, and Jason Clemens DC on Twitter. X is what we should call it now, not even Twitter. Hope everybody had a great day. I hope everybody's having a great week. If you guys are out here in West Texas tonight, be careful. We got a tornado watch going on out here. We got some storms popping up around the area. This is the time of year that we're used to in West Texas of having this type of stuff. I know you guys all over the country are having all kinds of different weather things going on, but if you're around Lubbock and you're out and about, be careful out there. It's a little dangerous tonight. It looks like it's going to be pretty clear here at the Rock. So we're going to carry on with the show. If we get knocked off the air, then we'll just go home. So, but other than that, we're here. We got lots to talk about tonight. We talked about epigenetics a little bit last night, and I wanted to kind of finish up some thoughts on that. Tonight, there's a whole PowerPoint that I have on epigenetics that I thought would be kind of cool to look at. Some of the thoughts could look at it. We talked a little bit about diabetes. We talked about exercise. We talk about chiropractic all the time. And all those things are on the table tonight. So if you have a question, send it to me, 806-794-0400. You can text me, 806-794-0400. You can send me a message on social media. And I got a message last night. That's what I really want to start tonight with, is the message that I got last night about taking supplements and eating a bad diet. And one of our listeners who listens to us all the time sent that message. And she was just saying, I've started since she's been listening to the show. She started taking her vitamin D and her fish oil. And she was wanting to know, is it doing any good if she continues to eat a bad diet? And it's a really interesting question. And I thought we would spend a little bit of time on it and just kind of see if we can answer that question. I answered it last night in response to the question, but I thought I would just take a little bit of time. I don't think you can supplement a bad diet. I don't think you can overcome it to the point where you want to be. It's just not it's not sustainable. And you get into supplements, and I've got an article that we can look at tonight about vitamin D, and I really want to get to that here in just a second. But number one, if you're deficient in a vitamin, you need that vitamin, period. So if you're deficient in vitamin D, you need that vitamin. If you're deficient in vitamin C, you need that vitamin. If you're deficient, in my opinion, in omega-3s, you need that supplement. Now, so the deficiency you're addressing. So I think there is some benefit to a certain extent. I think there's some benefit to address the deficiency that you might have. I can guarantee you that you've got a deficiency if you're eating a standard American diet of processed food, ultra-processed food. There is lots of evidence that says that an ultra-processed food diet is going to deplete you of your vitamins and minerals and your nutrients that you need. And there's remember we've talked about brain. We've said glucose, oxygen, and excitability. Glucose is that fuel that we need, okay? You can get into ketones and all that stuff, but glucose, oxygen, and excitability, we talk about nerves all the time. We talk about fuel and activation. And fuel, glucose and oxygen, right? And then activation is movement. So when you process food, when you take plants from the field or animals from a field, and you take them into a lab and then you process them, or into a factory and you process them, you're losing the nutrients that along the way. That's the ultra processed food that we have. That's the bad diet. So you're going to be deficient with vitamins and minerals. So is taking the vitamin D and the fish oil going to be beneficial? Yes, it is going to be beneficial. But in the long run, if you continue with eating this standard American diet, which is sad if you break if you break it down, if you continue with this, you're just going to end up with so many more problems that your body's just going to break down eventually, and you're going to have a lot of problems. And we're all going to die, so it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't make any difference. There's no evidence, and you've always got someone like Warren Buffett who drinks a Coke and eats ice cream all the time. Whatever, lives to be 80. There's so many arguments when it comes to nutrition. What I think I've learned, and there a lot of people, a lot of people are. It's all in moderation. Whatever you do, it's all in moderation. I'm not a moderation guy. I don't handle I don't handle sweets that way. I don't my brain doesn't process food that way. I don't have enough self-control when I'm either all or nothing in my particular case. Some people say that Leslie's way better than I am. She can have one bite of something and then she's fine. But to me, I'm not one of those people. And then the moderation category, I think that it doesn't make any sense. It's like we're just arguing for our limitations when it comes to something like that. So I really think that you should take your supplements, but you should really get that diet under control. And the question is, why is it not under control? Why are you not eating good food? And that has to do with your brain and the way your brain is firing, in my opinion. It's like that right side, left side hemisphere. How many times have we gone over that? About 8 million, I think. And in the process of that, we have, we've kind of discovered that it's that low dopamine that I really do think this is a thing. I really think this is a big deal. And you would think I would by as many times as I've gone over it, right? But I'm just telling you, after 3 years of not eating sugar, I just really believe that this is the truth. I believe that your brain fires from right side to left side. I believe that's true. Now, it's not neurologically pathway specific. It's not neurological pathway specific. I'm not saying that your right fingertip doesn't fire into your left sensory cortex. Of course it does. There's a pathway that goes that way. What I'm saying is, in a big picture standpoint, especially when it comes into the visual system, in a big picture standpoint, you're going to hit the right side first before you hit the left side. And if that is not happening, then you're going to be low in your dopamine on the left. And we've gone over that ad nauseum, right? And I think that is the reason that you're searching for an external source of dopamine, and that's the reason that you're eating the garbage. That's what I think, because I think you're getting it from your food, and instead of letting your brain just naturally adapt properly to eating properly. The second thing I believe is that a tremendous amount of it comes from your gut and the microbiome. The number of bacteria and all kinds of stuff that is in your gut is a contributing factor through the vagus nerve about what's going on in the gut and how it's firing into the brain. I think the gut-brain axis is trying to tell the brain, hey, listen, give us more carbs. We want more carbs. I think the crackhead bacteria that get in your gut overtake your gut, and then they start to tell your brain, hey, we need more carbs, so your brain eats more carbs, and then you're on a cycle like that. So we got to clean up the gut. We got to get some of those crackhead bacteria to die off by stopping feeding them. We got to quit feeding them the sugar that they thrive off of, because when we give them that sugar, they just multiply and grow. And so there, and now we get this, we're just disrupted, right? So what could you do? What could you do to help yourself? Like what are the things that you could do? And it's really simple, but it's like these are the things that you're going to eat in a day. You're just like, hey, okay, here's what I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat meat and eggs, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to make sure that that meat is wild, grass-fed, and grass-finished meat. I'm going to eat meat and eggs. I'm going to eat vegetables. I'm going to eat berries. And I'm going to eat nuts. And I'm going to drink water. If you have to get into coffee and tea, then go ahead and get into coffee and tea, but stay away from carbonated drinks. So, like this is what you're going to eat. And so, what you say is like, well, what am I going to have for breakfast? What am I going to have for breakfast? I am going to eat this for breakfast. A typical breakfast. I didn't have it this morning. What's Wednesday? What is today? Thursday. Oh, I started at 5:00 this morning. That's why I didn't have. I had a bar and some nuts today. Hey, Lewis, hope everything's going good. But like tomorrow morning, I'll go work out and then I'll come home and I'll have breakfast and I'll eat my eggs and my sausage or bacon, and that's not the cleanest meat, but that's what I'll have tomorrow. I'll have raspberries, I'll have pistachios and macadamia nuts. It's on the list right there. Like sometimes I stop at Whataburger and I get a double sausage and egg biscuit and I throw away the biscuit. Is it cooked in seed oils? Yes. Is that the cleanest hog? No. Is it still on my list? Yes, it's still on my list. Am I going to eat the biscuit? No, I'm not going to eat the biscuit. I haven't in 3 years had a biscuit. Why? Because I've just decided that I'm not going to eat that if it's not on my list. And you can say to yourself, well, I don't know. I'm eating. You'll just come up with some answer, right? You'll just come up with some answer, and you'll just say that. Well, I like my biscuit, and I'm like, no, you don't. You don't like your biscuit. You like your dopamine. You like your dopamine. That's the reason that you're eating your biscuit. Otherwise, you wouldn't eat a biscuit. This is not 1860. We are not starving to death most of the day. This is not the old days. And you say, well, it's too expensive. Well, do you drink Cokes? Because you're like, okay, well, if you don't ever drink Cokes and you're saying it's too expensive, then that's okay. And eggs are too expensive, and okay, well, maybe you got to survive. But if you get past survival rate and you can move on to that, I think these are the things that you eat, and you just don't eat anything else. Eat as much of that as you want. It doesn't make any difference. You can eat as much of that as you want. You can eat as many berries and as many nuts and as many vegetables as you want. Just don't get hungry so that you go crazy, but just eat those things. And if you're saying, well, any of them, yeah, pretty much whatever you want. Just eat those. Eat those things and just watch what happens. Give yourself about 4 weeks. You say, okay, well, what if we go to Burger King? Or what if we go to McDonald's? Or whatever. Okay, look what's on the list. You can have meat and eggs. All right, they don't have any. They just have meat. Okay, I'm just going to have meat. I'm just going to get a double Big Mac or whatever. I'm going to throw away the bun. I'm going to eat the meat. Whatever they've got, whatever you're at. Do they have French fries? Yes. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not eating French fries. I'm not doing that. It's not on my list. It is, okay, is a French fry a vegetable? Yes, a potato is a vegetable. Is a French fry a vegetable? Technically, a French fry is a vegetable, but technically, a French fry is toxic. So, you want to, that wouldn't be something that's on the list, right? So that's the way I would handle that. I would just start eating that. And what will happen right here? What will happen is when you eat this diet, you will change your microbiome. You will change your gut crackheads that will die off. They do not like this stuff. They don't want to eat that. The crackheads don't want to eat that. The good, strong, solid, good bacteria are the ones that want to eat that. And they'll multiply, and then they'll start to stomp out those little punk bacteria that's in your gut, and you'll start to clean up your gut. Now you'll start to control your gut brain axis. So now you've got some control over what's going on between your gut and your brain. And in the same time, you've started to grow back the receptors on the cells that allow you to just have small amounts of dopamine in your day, and your cravings will go away. And then when you do that, now you're really onto something. You're really moving in the right direction, and you're really onto something. And now you got a chance to change, because you're going to take your fish oil and your vitamin D. And now you're going to start to decrease your inflammation. You're going to help your brain with your DHA synapse better. You're going to decrease your inflammation. You're going to help your immune system, and that's something we're going to talk about here in just a second. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to have multiple layers overlapping themselves that's working for you, instead of having multiple layers overlapping themselves working against you. Like now it's like, yes, I got my players in place. Like I got the system is now like, whoa, okay, it's not just the gut, it's not just the brain, it's the combination of all of it together. It's not just the inflammation, it's all of it together. And then pretty like now you're like really moving in the right direction. And if you do this as many days as possible and stay away from those ultra processed foods, you will find out that you will start to get healthier. And then things will fit together like they're supposed to. So, should you take your fish oil and your vitamin D? I think yes. Should you also, at the same time, don't use the excuse. Don't say, well, I'll take my fish oil and my vitamin D, but I don't think I'm quite ready to get my diet under control. That's just an excuse, and you might as well just stop today. You might as well stop right now, today, and quit telling yourself that, because you're just lying to yourself when it comes to making those statements. I did it for 50 years, so I know I'm right there with you, and I know exactly how we lie to ourselves, and that's what we do. Okay, so that's that, and we'll move on, because I want to get to this article, because this is really something that's cool. I mean, it's not inspiring type cool, but I think we need to talk about it. And let me see where it is here. If I can find it, just 1 second. All right, so the article is, and I just found this, I just looking through different topics and stuff, reading a few articles, and the article is this: can taking vitamin D keep you from getting sick? What new research reveals? Okay, you remember how last night when I was wearing my green glasses, and I said, look, we got to look through these things with filters, and we have to understand the depth of it. It was so cool when I was a young person in my 20s. I got to spend a few years coaching football. I did it in New Mexico State, and I did it at Texas Tech. And I had a really cool friend at New Mexico State that named Jim Ferguson that kind of took me under his wing, and he had a depth of knowledge of what we were doing on offense. And I would say things, and he would just correct me, and he would show me how, and it was all kinds of stuff. So it was great. Then I came to Tech, and I got to coach on defense for Tech, and I got to work with John Goodner and Dean Campbell and David Moody and Dean Slayton and a bunch of those guys, Larry Hofer. There's just great guys. There was great guys there that I got to be exposed to, and they had lots of depth and understanding about what we were doing on defense in the 90s at Texas Tech. And when you had a conversation with them, there was so much depth and understanding with the conversations that it kept us on track with what we were trying to do defensively. They just didn't get tricked a lot. They did some, and things change, and things are always changing. But there was a lot of depth, right? So based on a year and a half or longer, however long we've been at this, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, a year and 7 months we've been doing this show. Over a year and 7 months, if you've been listening to the show, answer that question. What would you say if someone writing an article asks you the question, can taking vitamin D keep you from getting sick? I'll let you think about that for just a second. Can it help you? Can it keep you from getting sick? Well, do you remember the conversation we have, and you're welcome, Isabel, on that. So we had this conversation about a vaccine keeping you from getting you sick. And when we were talking about measles a couple weeks ago, the answer to that question is, can taking vitamin D keep you from getting sick? The answer is no. We're talking about viruses. They're specifically talking about a respiratory virus. But the answer to that question is no. It cannot keep you from getting sick. And that's the trick, and that's the deception in the question. That's the deception in the way, and I get it, Sarah that wrote this, Garone, Garone, and it may be Jerome. I'm sure she's a great lady, and I'm sure she's really smart, and she's just trying to fill the world up with good things, right? I'm not coming at her by any means. She's just trying to get a conversation started, right? But that you should know right off the bat. No. Can taking vitamin D keep you from getting sick? What new research reveals? And it's like, okay, well, what new research reveals? Oh, it got my attention. That's what the title was supposed to do. It got my attention. So it says a new study found that vitamin D supplementation offered no statistically significant protection against acute respiratory infections. Okay, here we go again. So we've gotten through the title of the article, and we've gotten through the first sentence of the article. A new study found that vitamin D supplementation offered no statistically significant protection against acute respiratory infections. Okay, acute respiratory infections. Is that why you take your vitamin D? Is because of acute respiratory infections? Is it protection against that? No, it's not protection against the infection. It's protection against the response to the virus. It's proper host environment that allows the host, the person, when I say the host, I'm talking about the person, you as a person, it's the proper host environment that you want to have when you get exposed to a respiratory virus. That's the thing. We want to be as healthy as possible every single day on earth so that we can handle whatever comes up against us. And some days we're going to be exposed to bacteria and viruses almost every day, but we're going to be exposed to those things. And there's going to be 99% of the time of our lifetime that we don't even know that our body fought it off. Did we get exposed to it? Did we have some sort of response to it? Sure. Yeah, we felt a little malaise or whatever. Maybe we had like a little low-grade fever. Maybe it's just a little something. I don't know. Just didn't feel that good. I'm going to bed. Got up the next morning, took off. Everything was great, right? It's the health of the host. But when you read these articles like this, they're so confusing because it makes you question whether or not doing healthy things is healthy. It makes you question, which is great. I don't mind the question, but it makes people confused about supplements. Vitamin D may be helpful for protecting some groups of people, but researchers say it's difficult to study it in isolation. Other healthy lifestyle habits might be more effective for warding off the common cold. Okay, I don't disagree with that. And then it goes down here. It says, taking vitamin D to fend off the common cold might not be as effective as previously believed. A new analysis published in The Lancet found that vitamin D supplementation did not prove statistically significant protection against the development of acute respiratory infections, aka the coughing, sneezing, and runny nose you might experience with a cold. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, vitamin D is the second most commonly taken dietary supplement in the United States after multivitamins. Many believe supplementing with this fat-soluble nutrient present in only a few foods and well absorbed from the sun is the key to preventing your run-of-the-mill illness. No, that's the allopathic medical pharmaceutical definition of a supplement. That's the wrong approach, in my opinion. And we got to take a break. We're up against a break right now. Stick around with us. We'll come back and I'll explain what I'm saying by that so that you can have a better feel to make your decision so that you just don't get tricked when you read an article like this. You guys stick around. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC, and we'll be right back right after these messages. I'll read that again while we're on the break. Many believe supplementing with this fat-soluble nutrient present in only a few foods and well absorbed from the sun is key to preventing your run-of-the-mill illness. No, I'm not going to prevent it. I'm just going to respond quickly, appropriately, minimally to those things. Historically, this belief has had some scientific backing. In 2021, meta-analysis conducted by the same research team, for example, found that a modest protective effect of taking vitamin D daily to ward off respiratory infections. It does have a certain amount of effect because low vitamin D levels slow dendritic cell migration to the lymph nodes. Now, I don't think that's a questionable finding. I think it's a factual finding. Dendritic cell migration to the lymph nodes is important in the speed by which the immune system responds to a virus. And in the process, you've got this initial stage of the immune response. It's over here fighting the virus. And so if we have a robust initial stage, then it changes the secondary stage. But if we're not getting that kicked down in the beginning, then that secondary stage comes along, and if it's robust, remember, we start to really have some problems. We want to jump on it quickly and stop the fight as quick as possible. And then we want the dendritic cells to migrate to the lymph nodes as quickly as possible so that we can get our secondary immune system kicked in, and then now we can control our environment rather quickly. So, in the latest study, researchers aim to review the science again, at this time including more recently published papers. There's lots of evidence, this is a quote, there's lots of evidence that vitamin D influences the immune system. And many people have low vitamin D levels. Study author Carlos Camargo Jr., MD, professor of epidemiology at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, told this health magazine. We wanted to know, he added, would giving a vitamin D supplement help? Hang on one second. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We're going over an article at the moment that we're talking about vitamin D, about a new study that just came out. And there's a quote here. It says, there's lots of evidence that vitamin D influences the immune system, and many people have low vitamin D levels. So that's a problem in the beginning. If you have low vitamin D levels, then that's a problem. You have a deficiency in vitamin D. Where that level is deficient is up for debate depending on who you ask. Because in the medical world, usually they have the level way lower than they in the health and wellness world. Ask Dr. Hyman, ask Dr. Bredesen, ask Dr. Lustig what your levels ought to be, and they'll say, hey, like you got to, they'll be better off if they were higher. But if you ask people that, I don't even know where the medical world, to be honest with you, I don't even know where the medical world standards come from. But somewhere, most of the time, they're set to prevent sickness, which in the vitamin D case is called rickets. If you have too low of vitamin D, you'll end up with a problem called rickets. You can Google that, and you can see how you get bone deformity with that. And the reason you get bone deformity is because the number one function of vitamin D is to help you absorb calcium from your food, from those vegetables that you were eating. That's where you get your calcium from, not from your calcium supplementation and not from your dairy. That's not where you get your calcium from. If you don't believe me, I'll show you the studies that say that the Harvard Nurses study, with 77,000 nurses, that said the ones that drank the most milk were the ones that had the highest level of osteoporosis. Because milk is an animal protein, and animal protein sometimes make us more acidic, and then that gives us this reason to pull calcium from the bone. So people say, well, I got to take my calcium. I got to take my calcium. And it's like, I don't think so. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think it's good for your brain to be over calciumed. I think that your body will regulate your calcium absorption if you have proper levels of vitamin D. That's the number one thing. So you take your vitamin D, you absorb your calcium from your broccoli. You absorb your calcium from your spinach leaves. You absorb your calcium from your vegetables. And then you can control it better that way, right? So he wanted to know, would giving vitamin D help? So this doctor and other researchers added 6 additional studies for the new systemic review and meta-analysis, bringing the total number of studies and participants to 46 and over 64,000 people. That's great. That's a big number. The scientists examined whether the people who took any vitamin D were less likely to get acute respiratory infections than those who took a placebo, and whether additional factors like age, dosage, or pre-existing blood levels of vitamin D made any difference. Okay. It's a great question to ask if you're a scientist and you're interested in knowing the answer to the question. That's fair enough. But it's not it's not the proper question. And I was listening to a guy, some guru this morning on YouTube, and he was saying, to get a better life, ask better questions. Like if you really want to improve your life, ask better questions. So these guys wanted to examine whether or not people who took vitamin D were less likely to get acute respiratory infections. It's like it's a bad thing. It's not the point. It's vitamin D is one part of it, the whole picture. Take the same person that takes vitamin D, that doesn't eat ultra-processed foods, that stays away from sugar, that also takes their fish oil, that exercises on a regular basis, that gets their sleep at night, and put that together and then redo your study. It'll kick the crap out of the study. You want your statistics to show up. That's what you'll get. You add all those healthy things together, and now you find out who's got respiratory infections. So we've got evidence that talks about that part of it. You're not going to keep yourself from being exposed to being sick. Let me say it that way. You're not going to keep yourself from being exposed. You may keep yourself from being sick if your body can handle the exposure. And that's the less inflamed you are, the less crackhead bacteria you have in your gut, the better off you're going to be when it comes to that. Okay. The results: taking vitamin D did not significantly lower people's chances of contracting a cold, no matter where they fell on the spectrum of age, dosage, or existing vitamin D status. Fortunately, however, vitamin D also did not cause any more side effects than placebo. And so we haven't even gotten into the article yet. We haven't even gone, and we've got it pulled up. We could go to it, right? But it says nope, it doesn't keep you from getting a cold. Okay, I can't not get exposed to the cold virus. It's impossible. It's like saying I can get, if I take enough vitamin D, I will not be exposed to the wind. It's like, it doesn't even make any sense. Of course, you're going to be exposed to the wind, and you're going to be exposed to the viruses. There's nothing you can do to not be exposed to the viruses other than live in some sort of bubble, and like it has some sort of ultimate control. I saw one movie one time, some little kid, he had no immune system, so he lived inside this plastic bubble. Okay, if you live inside a plastic bubble that's completely controlled, then you can keep yourself from getting exposed to the virus. But that's not the way we live. We get exposed to the viruses all the time, but our internal system is stronger than the virus. Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, taking vitamin D didn't significantly lower people's chances of contracting a cold. You contracted it. A lot of them contracted it. Here's the problem that they can't tell you in a study. How are they going to determine that you contracted a cold? How are they going to know if they take a group of people, let's say there's 64,000 in this study, and now they're going to take half of those people and they're going to give them vitamin D. You got 64,000, so you got 32K over here, you got 32K over here. You're going to give this group vitamin D, and this one is the placebo. Okay, now we're going to test and see. And what's going to happen is an X number of these people are going to end up getting a cold. Let's just say that it's going to be, I don't know. Let's just pick a number. Let's say 5,000. Let's say 5,000 people got a cold over here, and 5,000 people got a cold over here. Okay, that's good. And then what you say is, it's pretty much the same. There's no difference between the two groups. It's not statistically significant because it's pretty much the same between the two groups. What they can't measure in this test is the 27,000 people over here and the 27,000 people over here. When you look at those people, how many of these people actually got exposed, and how many people over here got exposed? And how many of these people over here got exposed to the virus and fought it off without ever even knowing that they had the virus at all? You can't, both groups, it's impossible to measure that. Do you follow me on that one? Does that make any sense at all? Or does that sound like I'm just smoking something here? Okay. When you're doing a test, and you've got 32,000 people in a group, how are you going to determine how many of those people got a cold? What is the criteria that you're going to measure to determine that they got a cold? Well, you got to have something, right? You got to have them self-report. So we're going to run this test for how long? We're going to run this test for 6 weeks. We're going to run this test for 18 months. We're going to run this test for 4 years. What's the time frame? And during that, let's say we're going to run this test for 12 months. During the 12 months, you got 32,000 people in your test that you've given vitamin D to. How are you going to know during the 12 months if one of those 32,000 people got a cold? The only way you're going to be able to do that is by self-reporting the symptoms, right? The person has to self-report the symptoms. What you're going to do when you enter these people into the study is you're going to tell them all, hey, look, what I need you to do is if you feel like if you sniffle, if you cough or sneeze or whatever, if you get a fever, whatever your thing is, if you have any symptoms whatsoever, I'm going to give you a criteria of the symptoms that you're going to have. If you have any of these symptoms, I need you to call us and tell us that you got the symptoms, and then I need you to go into the clinic and get checked so that we know that you got the cold. Okay? That's what they're going to tell the 32,000 people. And they're going to tell the 32,000 people over here the same exact thing. They're going to tell them on both sides. Look, self-report what you got. Okay. Then 5,000 people are going to actually, on both sides, 5,000 people are going to call in and say, hey, I got a cold. Okay. That's great. Now we can measure in this scenario, we can measure if which side of the other was affected or whatever, right? Okay. But what we cannot measure is the 27,000 people that did not get a cold symptom. That's what we can't measure. We can't measure that. And you say, well, that's stupid. Why would you even measure that anyway? Like, yeah, well, because what if my immune system is so freaking strong because I take my vitamin D that I could get exposed to the virus and my immune system would crush the virus in such a short amount of time that I don't even know I have a cold. I'm not going to call in. How would I know that? I wouldn't know that, because how am I supposed to know how many viruses? You know, I opened my web browser today. I opened DuckDuckGo on my computer over there, and it just popped up when I clicked on the little X or whatever for a new tab, and it popped up how many tracking attempts were blocked by the web browser. And you know what the number one thing of all of them was on there? Canva. Canva was tracking, like, I don't know, 1,100 times tried to track something on my computer as I was trying to work on Canva. What a bunch of punks, man. It's like, leave me alone. But I didn't have any idea. I just looked at that and I was surprised that I have a web browser that's protecting me, apparently, from getting tracked by all these websites that are trying to track me on my computer. But I never knew that it was happening at all. It just was happening because it's what that web browser's job is to do, or at least they claim it. And I'm not trying to get into web browsers. I'm just saying that what I'm saying is we know there's things that you could do to be healthier, and it's hard to measure what doesn't happen. How do you measure what doesn't happen? How do these people that take their vitamin D, now separate them into all those categories that I said a while ago. Take the ones that take their vitamin D and their fish oil. Take the ones that do their vitamin D, their fish oil, and exercise. Take the ones that do vitamin D, fish oil, exercise, and get adjusted. Figure out what categories those people are in, and then measure how many times those people get sick. See see if you get a change in that. Because I'm telling you that if you split those up into categories, what you're going to find out is the healthier you are, the less you get sick. And you think to yourself, boy, that's a genius statement right there, right? Like you came up with that all by yourself. And I'm like, well, kind of, but think about it. You don't even know it because your immune system is functioning well, right? That's what it's like. Look, you're not going to come out with an article after 20 years of working on this. You're not going to come out with some article that's going to shut me down and scare me into thinking that I shouldn't be taking my vitamin D. Right? It's like, yes. So let's move along. I'm sorry. According to pulmonologist Dr. Schluger, dean of the School of Medicine at New York Medical College, who was not involved in the study, these results aren't surprising. Although prior to 2021, reviews suggested a small benefit in the preventing of cure of respiratory tract infections from vitamin D supplementation, that finding just barely reached statistical significance, he pointed out in an email. With the addition of several large recent randomized controlled trials, that's what I just showed you right there, right? To review, there's no longer any evidence of a statistically or clinically significant reduction in the risk of acute respiratory infection, common colds, but also bronchitis and pneumonia in a person taking supplementation. And that comes from a guy that's dead center in the middle of sick care. He's dead center in the middle of sick care, and he's probably brilliant. I don't know the guy, never met him before. I'm sure if he is the dean of the School of Medicine at New York Medical College, I bet he is a smart dude. And I bet he is highly, highly educated. And I bet you that he's got all kinds of prestige. And I bet you he's on some sort of committee. And I bet you he's got all kinds of diplomas on his wall. And he's probably really, really good. He's probably super smart. And he's probably really, really good at sick care. And he already knows, just like I already know in the wellness world, he already knows, it's like, oh yeah, these people, common colds, bronchitis, pneumonia, like in a person taking supplementation. And then he added, despite widespread attention around vitamin D for respiratory illnesses, the largest and most well-conducted randomized controlled trials have generally not shown a benefit for taking it for this purpose. Okay, that's not why I'm taking it. I'm not taking it for that purpose. We do totally agree on that. I'm not taking it for that purpose. I'm taking it for the internal purpose of what's going on inside my body. I'm taking it to create the best internal environment that I can possibly have inside my body. That's why I'm taking it. Not for this, because you might measure it on a respiratory problem. I can tell you if I get a respiratory virus, I will handle it way better. I can also tell you that I haven't had a respiratory virus, and since I quit eating sugar in 3 years ago, I can tell you that. I can tell you that I can't even remember being sick at all in the last 3 years. You guys have seen me for a year and 7 months. Like, how many days in a year and 7 months have I been sick on the air? We've done this show 5 nights a week. It's like we just went through one of the worst winters that we've had, and which day did I cancel because I had a cold? Not one. And it's like, I know you're thinking, well, it's probably your superior genetics. No, it's not. Okay. All right, let's get to the next part. Okay. This other doctor said, however, that his team's research paints a complex picture of vitamin D's effects on respiratory infections. Looking at all vitamin D regimens as one intervention is challenging, he said. For example, people with low baseline vitamin D might receive an immune health benefit from a frequent low-dose supplement. But if other populations don't, this drives the overall results towards null. Many people want to know if vitamin D supplements work as a yes or no question, but the answer is it depends, he said. Yes, of course it does. It depends on a lot of stuff. What to consider before taking it. Although vitamin D supplementation might not be a panacea for cold prevention, it's important to know that having adequate levels of the nutrient is still critical for good health. There you go. It's still critical for good health. In addition to supporting immune function, vitamin D is essential for bone and neuromuscular health and can help reduce inflammation. All right, let's say that we did that. Let's say that we supported the immune function. We talked about that with dendritic cells, initial immune response, secondary immune response, and that whole process, okay? Vitamin D is essential for bone and neuromuscular health. What if you had bad bone and bad neuromuscular health? What do you think the stress level on your total system would be as compared to having good bone and good neuromuscular health? How about your sympathetic response? How about having good, strong bones versus having weak bones? Do you think that it's threatening to the brain to have weak bones? Do you think it would be threatening to the brain if I stepped down off this stool and my brain wasn't sure whether or not my femur was going to hold me? Would you think that that would be a right side, sympathetic, threatening situation? Or do you think that would be a left side, parasympathetic, rest and recover situation? Of course, it would be a right side threatening situation. Your brain, the physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses, that fire this sympathetic nervous system, this subluxation that we talk about, that fires the sympathetic nervous system. Now, increased sympathetic tone decreases health. So, by taking vitamin D, maybe indirectly, I'm helping my immune system function better because I'm getting better bone and neuromuscular health, and can help reduce inflammation, which is another aspect that's beneficial to the overall response of my immune response, is to lower the flame. So when I get this acute respiratory problem, I have very little symptoms in the process. Like, you follow me on that? Does that make any sense? Yeah. While it's always been best to ask for your healthcare team whether vitamin D is worth taking for your specific health concerns, Darby said that some people might benefit from supplementation. For example, it might be helpful for those living in a climate that doesn't get much sun. What would it be helpful for? If you live in a climate that doesn't get much sun, who might be deficient in vitamin D as a result, what would it help? Like, if you say, well, if you don't live close to the equator, you might live in a place where you don't get much sun, so taking the supplement would be good for you. And good for what? It would be good for what by taking the supplement if it was low? It would be good for bone health and neuromuscular health and immune system function and hormone development and like lowering your inflammation. There's also lots of research that says that multiple sclerosis happens away from the equator, where there's not much vitamin D. There's also some tie-ins to Lou Gehrig's disease and vitamin D. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the vitamin D realm. Says here you can boost your consumption through diet. Most people can reach their vitamin D needs through fortified diet foods. No, they can reach their needs from eating whole foods and the proper foods. Darby said nothing, noting that it's important to also pay attention to diet quality and diversity. Yep. Look for milk, cereal, orange juice, and bread fortified with NIS nutrients, or reach for fatty fish as a natural source of vitamin D. Yeah. No. Look for milk, cereal, orange juice, and breads fortified with this nutrient. Okay. If you're starving to death and you don't have any money whatsoever, then that's a good recommendation. Look for those things. Orange juice is fructose, and orange juice is going to create inflammation in your liver. So juices are not on our list, right? Bread's fortified with nutrients. Why do they have to be fortified with nutrients? Because you took all the nutrients out of them when you processed them through the factory. You took the wheat from the field, you took it into a factory, you stripped it all down to nothing, you ran it through a bunch of bleach, you did a bunch of stuff to it, you took all the nutrients out of it, so now you have to put the nutrients back into it. That's not the proper way, right? There's no silver bullet for keeping respiratory infections at bay. However, certain lifestyle habits can impact your immune system's ability to hold them off. Yeah, it can fight it and you can get it going. Maintaining a healthy diet, avoiding tobacco use, and staying up to date. Here you go. And staying up to date on recommended vaccinations for viruses and bacteria that cause pneumonia are the best ways to avoid respiratory infections. There's your dean of medicine right there at the New York School of Medicine, right? A healthy diet, avoid tobacco, and staying up to date on your vaccinations. Of course he's going to say that. That's his life. That he believes that like I believe fish oil. You choose when you listen to that stuff. That's the best way to get keep away from pneumonia. Whatever. We could break that down for another for another hour. The best way is to be healthy, right? And the best way is to eat well, move well, and think well, like Dr. Chestnut says. And the best way to do that is to do all those things that we talk about. Eat your good foods, meat and vegetables, nuts and berries. Stay away from processed foods. Get your sleep. Find somebody that you love and tell them you love them. And hang out with people that inspire you. Have some goals. Write them down. Like there's just good stuff. Get some exercise. Go for a walk. That's all I got. I'm out of time. I hope that was okay. Maybe something stuck for somebody out there. If I can help you, please let me know. 806-794-0400. Send me a message on social media. You guys have a great night. Be safe if you're in West Texas. And we'll be back tomorrow night at 6.